So 4 items on tonight's agenda. We have really less than 2 hours to get through all 4 of them, so we're going to have to move pretty quickly. I know there's a lot of interest, especially in item 2, the animal control services. I'm going to go ahead and take these in the order that they're published in our agenda, which will be the master plan review follow-up, then animal control services, then downtown revitalization, economic development, and finally regional issues. So with that, let's go ahead and talk about the master plan review follow-up.
Great. Thank you, Council President Corman, members of City Council. Excuse me, Chip Vincent from CED. And this is the second and final installment of the comprehensive plan review update being done. As you remember, this discussion started at your retreat last February, where we put together a matrix of all the different plans that are adopted by the different city departments through the City Council. And in the interest of time, we've broken this out into 2 phases. On your meeting on August 1st at the Committee of the Whole, we covered CED, the Mayor's Office Administration, and community services. So tonight we will finish with administrative services, public works, and emergency management. And so we have representatives from all 3 departments here tonight. So we'll take these in order as well, beginning with administrative services, and that's Mehdi.
Okay.
Council President Corman, members, my name is Mehdi Sadri, working for IT. Just giving you an update on IT strategic plan. We started back in March of this year. We've done an assessment of our current IT infrastructure. We have done a review and survey of our staff and interviewed departments about their business needs. We've identified, we're looking into identifying the process and the gap that we have in our technology. There is a continuing change, as you know, in the IT environment, whether it's the mobility or connectivity or online services. These are the issues that we are looking at, and we're trying to develop a strategic plan as we go forward to help the departments and to improve our quality and customer service. We expect the plan to be completed sometimes in September, October of this year. If you have any question?
Any questions from council? No?
Okay, thank you.
President Corman, members of the council, I'm Greg Zimmerman, Renton's Public Works Administrator. I'm going to share the presentation of the master plans that are associated with the Public Works Department with Lise Hornsby. I'll handle the transportation and airport master or city and regional plans, and then I'll introduce Lise to talk about the utility plans. I think you're all extremely familiar with the 6-year transportation improvement program. We update that every year by state law. And as a matter of fact, we're going to bring the 2017 through 2023 6-year transportation improvement plan to the council on September 12th, so about a month from now. And basically what it does is it's a state requirement that we, how did I mess up my slides here? Okay, well, that's okay. It's a requirement that cities update their 6-year transportation improvement plan every year. It has a 6-year planning horizon, and it's a planning tool for development of our transportation projects in correlation with our comprehensive planning efforts and our land use decisions. And for planning purposes, the 6-year plan is shared with other jurisdictions, and it's also a requirement to have your plan updated and approved in order to be eligible for Puget Sound Regional Council grant funds. Yeah, I got this out of order. There we go. Nope. 1 second. I don't know how that happened, but it did. Okay, sorry. I have it in order again. Thanks, Jay. So, moving on to the next section, it's the Americans with Disability Act Transition Plan. This particular plan is part of the American with Disability Act, which is a federal civil rights statute dating from 1990. The purpose of it is to prohibit discrimination, the original American with Disability Acts, particularly for those who have disabilities or mobility challenges. And what the act does for the city is it requires us to remove barriers in our right-of-way for those with disabilities so that they can get around and be able to use our city facilities and our city right-of-way. There's a requirement that we have a specific transition plan as part of the ADA requirements. Our plan was presented to the City Council and adopted on May 2015, so it was fairly recent. What the plan does is it inventories barriers within the public right-of-way. Most of the barriers that we're looking at is street crossings that don't have ADA, Americans with Disability Act, approved design. And so we have to change those street crossings and update them and make them ADA compatible as we pave streets throughout the city. It provides project prioritization for removing the barriers to disabled people that exist, and it's funded through our transportation improvement plan. So this is a requirement that we have this.
Okay. By the way, any questions on that one? I just wanted to say, I probably should have said this at the beginning. We have quite a few citizens visiting us tonight, and I just wanted to say that if this doesn't really make sense, what this is the second half of a two-part meeting we're having to acquaint and reacquaint all the council with all of the different plans that have been approved through the years that the city is basically lining up to. And so you're getting kind of an overview of what each of those plans are. Different members of the council have different familiarity with them, so if you wonder why all these plans are being read and nobody's asking anything about it, that's why. The other thing I wanted to clarify is I'm not trying to purposefully make people wait for the Animal Control Services presentation, but it was announced that it was going to start a little bit later, and I have awareness that there might be people that are trying to rush from work to get here for that. So I'd actually like to take it a little later in the agenda. So I just want people to understand that. And with that, Greg, carry on, please.
Okay. The Commute Trip Reduction Act, there was Washington state legislation passed in 1991, and it requires employers with 100 or more employees that arrive between the hours of 6 in the morning and 9 in the morning to come up with a plan to reduce the amount of single occupancy vehicles that are on streets. In 1993, as part of our commute reduction plan, we contracted with King County Metro to implement the program. In 2008, the city took over managing our own commuter trip reduction program. What we basically do is we work with all of the employers within the city that have over 100 employees and work with options that they may have in order to try to get people to switch over to transit or potentially alternative work schedules to get trips off the street during the peak rush hour in the morning and the evening. The city has our own commuter trip reduction plan where we provide ORCA passes to city employees that wish to take transit so that they can take transit to and from work rather than using their single occupancy vehicle. So it's the purpose of the act is to try to get people to drive together and not in single occupancy vehicles to free up space on our road system.
Mr. Councilman, I have a question.
Yes. Ms.
Does that
Ritchie?
include the King County van pool program, and do we work with King County beyond just Metro?
Yes, the King County has a van pool and a program. The van pool is one of the service options that our employees have in terms of our commuter trip reduction plan. And we also talk to the businesses, the larger businesses in the city, and make sure that they're aware of these transit options that they have to see if we can get employees to shift over to mass transit.
Okay, thank you.
The airport master plan is a development plan for the airport, and there are, it's an attempt to plan operations at the airport and to predict and model air traffic demand over the next 20 years. There is a 10-year plan element and a 20-year plan element. The 10-year plan element for our airport, the Renton Municipal Airport, was last updated in 2009, and the 20-year plan was last updated in 1997. As you know, we are currently updating our airport master plan. It does several things. It provides a list of capital improvement projects that are eligible for Federal Aviation Administration grants. Most of our capital projects on the airport are built, 90% of the funding is from the federal government, the FAA grant funding program. The other 10% is airport enterprise funds. The general fund doesn't pay for airport operations. It's all paid for by leases on the airport. Our consulting service for the update of the airport master plan is Mead and Hunt. They're working on the plan as we speak. We're working through a longer process than we anticipated with the Federal Aviation Administration on a couple of elements of the plan. It slowed us down a little bit. We were hoping to have the updated plan completed in 2016, but now it's looking like June 2017. We have something called the Airport Sustainability Management Plan. This is most airports don't have this plan. As a matter of fact, it's a pilot plan that we were selected. The Renton Airport is one of 10 airports across the nation that was funded, acquired a grant fund from the Federal Aviation Administration to put together this plan. It outlines potential sustainability projects and practices, special projects and practices that will sustain the lease and the financial viability of the airport. Through this plan, we have an annual sustainability report that we present to the Renton Airport Advisory Committee each spring. The plan was last updated in 2012, and the next update is scheduled for 2017. It's not a mandatory plan the way the airport master plan is, but it's something that adds value to the airport, and it is funded through FAA grants. Those first master plans, so to speak, that I just went through are for the city of Renton. They're funded in many cases by grant funds, but there are city plans. The next few I'm going to go through are regional plans, either from the county or Sound Transit, but they're plans that are very important to the city, and we try to dovetail our local plans with the regional plans to make sure that our transportation improvements are going in the same direction. There's a connection between regional planning and local planning. So the first one is the King County Metro Transit Plan. Metro Connects is the name for it. It's a long-range plan that looks to the planning horizons of 2025 and 2040. The Metro Plan was last updated in 1992. The draft version was released to the public of the new updated plan on April of 2016. And we've had a significant amount of input into the plan, both through the Puget Sound Regional Council and also through staff efforts as well. And the plan sets a vision for a 70% increase in service hours over the planning horizon. The draft plan has some improvements that are very beneficial to the city of Renton. They're proposing 20 new rapid ride routes, 3 of which would be in Renton. And I think the rapid ride Route F that we have right now coming in from Seattle and serving Renton has been very successful. It'll be nice to have 3 more rapid ride routes implemented in the city. King County is scheduled to adopt the plan in the first quarter of 2017.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Prince.
Greg, don't forget the Regional Transit Committee, where we've had members for RTC for years working on this long-range plan.
Absolutely, absolutely. As a matter of fact, Councilman Prince, you're a member of the Regional Transit Committee and have probably done as much review and input into that plan as anybody. So we have both elected officials from Renton and staff from Renton that are reviewing and inputting that plan.
There's time for a quick question about what the 3 proposed routes are being added to Renton.
What's the pleasure of the council? Well, let me put it this way. I'm going to recommend that it's 7 o'clock during audience comment, that if anybody has questions, please bring your questions forward and take notes during this presentation. In fact, there probably will be interest, and we can answer them at that time.
Okay.
I'm saying that in large part just because we'd have to have notes of citizen comments and questions. I don't think we're prepared for that. I hope that's an okay answer. Thanks.
Okay. Of course, another plan that's moving forward right now is the Sound Transit Long Range Plan, including the Sound Transit 3 funding packet. Sound Transit 3 is the 3rd phase of Sound Transit high-capacity transit improvements, and it will be before the voters in November, the package, $50 million plus worth of transit improvements, including light rail, commuter rail, and bus improvements. The plan was last updated in 2014. The main focus is on light rail expansion, less so to date on bus rapid transit, but we have some good bus rapid transit elements in the current plan on the I-405 corridor. This is, as I mentioned, the 3rd phase of the plan that will be going before the voters. The main improvements that will benefit Renton from this plan is the I-405 bus rapid transit from Linwood to Burien. It will provide a bus service to Renton and the other cities along the I-405 corridor that is a higher level of service than most than express buses are. It's sometimes characterized as light rail on wheels, but it will be a good service with about 15-minute headways to Renton. And there'll be 2 new transit stations in Renton. One is the South Renton Transit Center that would be located on the corner of Rainier and Grady Way, and a second transit station up in the vicinity of I-405 and Northeast 44th Street, that interchange. And there will be a light rail study for expansion to Renton in a future round of Sound Transit. So there'll be some benefits in this package to the city. And then the other regional regional transportation program that we're heavily involved in is the East Side Rail Corridor Master Plan. This is being managed, this program, by King County and its King County Parks Department. The alignment of the old Burlington Northern Railroad track between Coulon Park and Renton all the way up to the north end of the county is being, 17 miles is being converted to a rail, or a trail corridor, a bicycle and pedestrian corridor. The southerly 2 miles of that 17 miles are in Renton. There's a lot of regional activity going on about exactly what that trail will look like and the services that it will provide. The final plan was released in 2016. The draft plan and the EIS was released in March 2016. The overall proposal is to implement a temporary trail along the Burlington Northern route that fronts that goes along the shoreline of Lake Washington. It'll be a gravel surface trail in this interim. And then it will eventually, in a second phase, be paved. It'll be an asphalt trail eventually. And so we're working pretty consistently with King County and the other cities to assure that access to the trail and how the trail interfaces with Coulon Park and our other amenities in the city, make sure that those features are optimal. So those are the major transportation master plans that we have going right now. I'm going to turn it over to Lise Hornsby, who will talk about the utility master plans, and then after that, we'll turn it over to Deb Needham for the emergency management master plan.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Council President, members of the council. Lise Hornsby, Utility Systems Director. Now for the good stuff. Press the button.
We think transportation's good, too.
First, we have the water system plan. It's one of the larger plans because it incorporates many of the smaller plans under the umbrella document. There are sections in the water system plan that talk about our operations, our technical, managerial, and financial capability, and our ability to comply with all the regulations. We also have to demonstrate how we will meet future and existing water needs. This plan is an element of the city's comprehensive plan, and it's required by state law. We have to update it every 6 years. The last plan was adopted in 2012. It has to be approved by the council, King County, and the Department of Health. So we are actually gearing up to update the plan, to start the update, because it takes a really long time to get these things through. The water system plan also includes many other plans that we do in the water system. It includes the coordinated water system plan, which is a very old document. It's periodically updated. And this is the original plan that basically divided our entire service area up into the different jurisdictions. It also has the wellhead protection plan, which has guidelines and requirements for what we can and can't do surrounding our wellheads. The cross-connection control plan, which basically includes the regulation and what we do to prevent cross-connections within our system. The water conservation and water use efficiency plans, which basically now that's a little bit easier because we are under the umbrella conservation program, the regional conservation program that is headed up by the city of Seattle. But that basically talks about what we do to promote water conservation. And then the emergency response plan basically describes what we do in the event of a variety of known emergencies that might happen in our water system. Oh, good. The long-range wastewater management plan, similar to the water system plan, but for wastewater. It too is an element of the city's comprehensive plan, and it basically informs our utility capital program, our policies, our standards, and again, our financial goals. It's also required to be updated every 6 years, and we are currently updating it, and we will be including in this update a couple of additions. One is we will be including the wastewater operations management plan, which basically describes our operations, and there's an increased emphasis on repairs and replacement. And we will also be including design standards and guidelines in this update of the plan. Okay, the surface water utility master plan is currently being developed. It's also a comprehensive planning document, and it will guide our programmatic and capital improvement needs. We are working on it for, hopefully to have it adopted in 2017 by the council. The plan will include history of the system, accomplishments, the drainage basin and service areas, maps and such, the current surface water management program, regulatory requirements and city policies having to do with surface water, future program needs, a capital improvement project projection, and recommendations. Oops, wrong direction. And then within that, we have the stormwater management program plan, which is basically our plan. Hey, don't get loose with the button there.
Okay.
Gotta watch him. That is basically our plan for
There I am. We're back.
for complying with the National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System Permit, which we call our Phase 2 Municipal Stormwater Permit, NPDES. This management program includes the NPDES requirements, which are outlined here. And just quickly, we have public education and outreach requirements, public involvement and participation. We have to have an ordinance and get out and try to detect illicit discharge and eliminate them. We don't want things going in our storm system that shouldn't go there. We want to control development from new development and redevelopment and construction sites. We also have to watch municipal operations and maintenance, that they follow the same requirements of the permit. There's total maximum daily load requirements, and then we have to monitor to see how we're doing. And we have provide guidance also to reduce the discharge of pollutants into our system, which is the whole point of the permit. And this plan is updated annually. Then we have the salmon habitat plans. We have WIRA or RIA 8 and 9, which is Water Resource Inventory Area, which are areas that were established by the Department of Ecology. And WIRA 8 or RIA 8 is the Cedar River and environs, and WIRA 9 is the Green River. And Renton has a little bit in each of those. So these plans were developed in response to the Endangered Species Act listing of Chinook salmon. The plans prioritize actions to restore and protect salmon habitat. They were developed through a very long stakeholder planning process, and we ratified them originally in 2005. And updates are currently underway. I think we've updated them somewhat in between, but we're doing a formal update currently. Oh, keep going. Oh, and we have interlocal agreements that fund the implementation of these plans. WIRA 8, there are 28 jurisdiction partners that help fund it, and WIRA 9 has 17. The King County Surface Water Design Manual is the manual that has been adopted, modified and adopted by Renton for design standards for the stormwater systems. The manual includes drainage review and requirements, the plan submittals required, hydrologic analysis and design, conveyance system analysis and design, flow control design, water quality design, maintenance standards, lots of important stuff in there for developers. We adopted the manual in 2009. The King County Surface Water Design Manual. We adopted the 2009 King County Design Manual in 2010. My goodness. The 2016 manual must be adopted by December of this year. so, to meet the NPDES requirement, so we're working on that. Okay, solid waste. We are involved with the King County Comprehensive Solid Waste Management Plan. It's a regional plan that provides system planning for all of King County solid waste. The plan's required by RCW, and it established goals and sets policies for the various waste management activities: waste prevention, recycling, collection, processing, transfer, landfill management, and disposal. We are currently updating the plan. Well, King County is currently updating the plan, and it was originally adopted in 2002. And then another county plan is the Local Hazardous Waste Management Plan. This provides guidance for the management of hazardous waste generated by residents, businesses, and institutions. It is also required by RCW. It's approved by the Board of Health and King County. It was originally established in 1990. It also is referenced in the city's comprehensive plan, and we adopted it in 2001. We also get quite a bit of grant money for our recycling and solid waste programs from that plant or that agency. And then we have all the links.
Okay, what I'll mention here is at the end of our PowerPoint presentation, we provided individual links that you could key in, and the whole plan will pop up for you if you wish to read a little bit more about it. These plans tend to be several hundred pages long, but they certainly have a lot of information that form the foundation of many of the things we do in Public Works.
Yeah, but excellent summary. Thank you for that presentation. Any questions for Public Works? All right, good. I think we move on to more emergency management.
Good evening, members of council. I'm Deborah Needham, the Emergency Management Director for the city. So we have a number of emergency-related plans that are referenced in the master plan. Some of those that I'll mention, I will let you know, are coming up. They don't appear there yet, but I believe that they probably should be adopted by council in the future. And as we know, our community has many kinds of emergencies. These are all in Renton. So if you'll look at the lower right-hand corner, there's the windstorm, the Haneke windstorm of 2006. Moving to the left, the Harrington fire. Moving up, you have the floods of 2009, and then a snowstorm of 2012. So we get lots of things that happen, and that's important for context because the way we do emergency plans, we have so many different things that can happen. We cannot possibly have a plan for every specific scenario. So instead, our plans are structured a little bit differently. I'll spend some time going into the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan. That is the most significant one that you need to be aware of. But we have a number of other plans: the Debris Management Plan, the Hazard Mitigation Plan, the Recovery Plan, which we're transitioning to become a recovery framework. And those are all found on the Q Drive. So all those in their current form are accessible to you on the city drives. Ones that are not adopted by council that are more of a tactical SOP level are the Volunteer Reception Plan, Reception Center Plan, I should say, Community Points of Distribution Plan, and then Animal Sheltering Plan, which is a plan created in conjunction with Police Animal Control, which may eventually be required to become an annex to the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan. So in each of these cases, sometimes we do see that later they become requirements and are added in, but these are standing plans that we have at present. Now, the Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan includes continuity of government and then overall coordination concepts. The bulk of that plan, the value of that plan is really, it talks about all the different hats that the different departments wear. And those who know me know I like hats, and so I like the hat metaphor. There are a lot of hats that we wear as a city in the different disasters. And so the emergency support functions address what those different roles are, broken down by special functions. And then we have annexes that are there for special situations. So with the emergency support functions, for instance, there is an emergency support function for transportation, for communications, all of these things you see here. And within each one of those roles and responsibilities of city departments, special entities, or outside agencies are identified. We have a matrix of outside agencies that have agreed to perform a certain role in our plan, so those are included and mentioned in our Comprehensive Emergency Management Plan as well. One annex which does not appear yet, but the state has recommended in our next revision, is a catastrophic event annex. So if we were to take it, not just your normal everyday run-of-the-mill disaster, but a really bad one, they want to see what we would do with that, because it does change the rules of the game a bit. And I'll conclude by talking about some of the regional catastrophic plans that already exist, and we'll probably be pulling from a lot of those in order to update our comprehensive emergency management plan. This plan is required in the WAC. It recently came to light that there is a conflicting requirement in the WAC. It says every 2 years in the WAC, and yet what the state has been requiring of emergency management offices has been a revision every 4 years. Now, we are always in a state of revision with this plan, as there are so many emergency support functions. We are always constantly revising some part of it, so we are in compliance. However, we have not been bringing the plan forward to council except every 4 years. This was last adopted, actually it was in 2012 that it was officially blessed by council and the state. Through a change of the calendaring system the state is using, we've got a grace year. They're not actually requiring us to turn that in until 2017, but we will have the bulk of that work done in 2016 anyway. And then the continuity of operations plan is not one which has been adopted by council, because it has been in a constant state of draft since it began. In 2009, we began doing continuity of operations planning as part of the pandemic flu planning. If you'll remember, back in 2009, there was a big swine flu scare. And so we began doing some significant planning around that. We do still have some gaps that I don't consider this plan to be finished, but I consider it to be a very usable draft, and I would say the majority of the department's information is very up to date. Now, however, we have a big change. The Regional Fire Authority has changed the plan, and so that's the next change that we'll be making here. But I do believe we're getting so close. This is one that council will be seeing very soon in order to adopt. Likewise, the debris management plan. This one has been in a usable draft form for the past 2 or 3 years. It just needs some finishing touches, and there have been other priorities before us. It is a joint plan with Community Services, Public Works providing the bulk of that, and Emergency Management providing some coordinating functions. It just basically talks about how we deal with all kinds of debris, from contaminated woody debris from a flood all the way to chunky concrete from an earthquake. And if we do have that plan brought through council, and I believe we'll be seeing that before the end of the year, then if we do have a big debris incident, we get to have a one-time, you get to collect on an extra 5% of reimbursement for debris removal. So we'd want to save that sort of a thing for a big incident. So if we were to have the big one, like the Cascadia earthquake, that'd be the one we'd want to cash that in on. So that's one of the reasons we'll be pushing to get that plan completed and officially to council and FEMA by the end of the year. And then the hazard mitigation plan, this is one which you'll remember recently came before council. We were annexed into the county plan. It was a little earlier than we needed to revise our hazard mitigation plan, but there's some advantages to us on the technical skills and knowledge that the county has to update sections of the plan that would be difficult for us to do the science to update it. So we annexed into the county plan. We have 17 current proposed hazard mitigation projects, which may be of interest to council because many of those are on a policy level. It involves zoning and development policies around where development occurs. Anyway, those are within the hazard mitigation plan. And the whole idea of that plan is that it's intended to drive us towards mitigating disasters to lessen the damage instead of just waiting for the bad thing to happen and then cleaning up. And that plan is normally revisited every 5 years. However, the county, as the master holder now of the plan we're all annexed into, is asking us for annual reviews and updates. So we're currently collecting updates from city departments that have a piece of the hazard mitigation projects. The recovery framework, this is actually migrated out of the comprehensive emergency management plan. It used to be emergency support function 14. It is now a freestanding plan which council adopted in 2012. We're currently undergoing a revision just as part of the CEMP revision, and CED is taking the lead on that. It guides disaster recovery both in the short term and in the long term. And this again is something that has huge policy implications that council would play a role in the recovery phase of a disaster. So that's one to take note of. There is no current requirement other than being part of the CEMP as ESF 14. There's really no requirement how often it be updated, but it's one that we're trying to make sure that as the CEMP is completed, that it is current as well. And then there's lots of incentives. I like to think of it more as carrots and not sticks. you could say that it's a stick to say, we'll take away your grant funding if you don't do a comprehensive emergency management plan, but I like to think of that as a carrot. Besides being the right thing to do and a good thing to do, it does definitely grant us a lot of money. By having that, we meet one of the requirements in order to receive that grant funding. And I already mentioned the debris plan. We get that extra 5% one-time reimbursement. And with the hazard mitigation plan, we are then eligible for hazard mitigation grants. And in the past, we've used those. We've upgraded fire stations to be current seismic code, and those can be pretty high dollar items. So that's a big plus for us to have that plan. And then key regional emergency plans. The King County Regional Coordination Framework, you have the link there online. That is a plan which governs how we all coordinate with one another for emergencies and a disaster. And it includes a pre-written financial agreement between signatory agencies. So the City of Renton is signatory to that. Prior to the latest revision last year, there were, I believe, 144 signatories to the Regional Coordination Framework. Currently, we are struggling to get more people signed back on because it is a completely new agreement. So that's something we'll be pushing in the region to get more cities and more private sector agencies signed on. That is something that is unique with this plan, is that it allows us to be able to tap private sector resources, and we have a standing legal financial agreement with them in advance. So it expedites getting what we need in a disaster. And then the Regional Catastrophic Grant Program, this is the one I mentioned, will be probably tapping into some of these plans as we're writing our catastrophic annex that the state is going to require of us. And the regional coordination, I'm sorry, I should have given you this one earlier. This one is approved by council, and I think I mentioned all the things on this slide as well. The Puget Sound Regional Catastrophic Plans, there are a number of them. These were developed using several $1 million worth of grant funds, using consultants, and a lot of us working on them in the region. The Regional Coordination Plan is the one that has the most significance for council, because this is what governs how regional decision-making will occur in a big disaster. So this one has some significance, and although it is not officially adopted by council, it is the standing expectation that is there in the regional community. And with that, are there any questions for me?
Well, thank you. I just have one. It's just a small part of one of the plans you mentioned, but it's a good segue into our next topic. And that was that you showed that there's an emergency animal sheltering plan. And I just wanted clarity. Is that for animals that might be, cut off or whatever, and if there's like an earthquake or?
That would be for post-disaster. There is since Hurricane Katrina, the federal government passed laws that said you must provide for animal sheltering in addition to people sheltering.
Okay.
Because so many people refuse to evacuate rather than leave their pets, because their pets are family members. And so we are mandated to provide animal sheltering. We've always had that capability, but it has not been very extensive. We did use grant funds some years ago to purchase numerous collapsible animal crates, food bowls, and other types of non-perishable supplies. So we have a stash of those materials available, but what we lacked up until about a year ago was we lacked having a plan about how we would actually put up a shelter, where we would put it, and how we would staff it.
I see.
So that there's been a draft plan for a while. Police worked on that last year, I believe, or the year before. We're looking now at how to operationalize that, and so we're working with police closely on that.
All right. Thank you very much,
Okay.
Ms. Needham.
Thank you.
I think that's it, right, for tonight. So great job, both nights of going through these. Council, wasn't that a good overview of? I mean, basically, there's a lot there, and please continue to ask questions, find the plans. They've given us all the links. So, good. Well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and move to the next item on the agenda. Like I say, I know this is of great interest. The Animal Control Services. Now, as we get started here, I know there's members of the public that are going to have questions. Council's going to have questions. This is basically the first council's getting a presentation on this topic. I'm going to encourage council, please go ahead and ask your questions as the presentation goes. Members of the public that are here, I'd ask you to write down your questions, and you can bring them to the podium at 7 o'clock or shortly after 7. We'll have a regular council meeting. We have an audience comment. Everybody has 5 minutes to ask questions or give comments. So that's kind of how we'll work the time. And we do have this item, and then we have 2 more items on this committee of the whole agenda. So that's how we'll proceed. So, Chief, if you're...
Well, good evening. My name is Kevin Milosevic, Police Chief for the City of Renton.
I'm Ed Van Bailey. I'm the Deputy Chief of Police.
The purpose of tonight's presentation is to give an overview of our animal control program and how it compares with the regional animal control of King County. And I'll follow this discussion with our relationship with the Seattle Humane Society, and we'll conclude with our proposed next steps since the Seattle Humane Society canceled our contract. After tonight's discussion, in the next week or two, I'll be forwarding an agenda bill and issue paper to the council requesting your permission and authorization to construct our expanded kennel at the city shops. Renton has its own animal control program. As you can see, it costs about $390,000 a year. At the same time, we take in about $90,000 a year in licensing fees. This puts our annual cost of the program at about $300,000. And of that $300,000, $124,000 is earmarked for contract kenneling services. Just to talk about our program a little bit, in 1985, when I came to the city, we had 1 full-time animal control officer and 1 part-time. And probably about 20 years ago, we moved up to 2 full-time animal control officers. At the same time, we've trained a majority of our officers to, in the event of there's an after-hours incident involving animals, that our officers can go out and typically be able to get that animal and put it up in the shops, or at least in the back of the animal control truck, so animal control can take care of it in the morning. Our 2 officers, Officer Wilkinson and McCaskill, are very competent, very skilled, especially in dealing with aggressive dogs. It's really amazing to watch them work. Cost comparisons a little bit. Most agencies contract with King County for all their animal control services. This includes licensing, kenneling, and animal control services. If you look at the city of Kent, there's kind of a comparable city. They contract with King County. It costs them about $215,000 a year. At the same time, they do not receive any revenue from licensing because King County Animal Control is responsible for that. Well, I'll explain a little bit later the type of service they get from Regional Services of King County, which is a much lower level of service than what we're receiving here in the city of Renton.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Prince?
Hi, Chief. Hey, so the, you said 124K of the 300K is for kenneling services?
Correct.
What's the other 176K for?
It's probably the 2 FTEs, salaries for the 2 animal control officers.
Okay.
In South King County, Auburn, Federal Way, Des Moines, and Renton have their own animal control program. Initially, once they developed the regional concept of King County, Auburn and Federal Way participated in that regional concept, but has since created their own animal control program. Kind of give an overview of what the regional sources is from King County. As you can see, King County is divided basically into, I'd probably say 4 quadrants. There's City Seattle, then there's area called 200 up on the north end, 220 in the center, and then 500 in the south end. Area 200, which includes the cities of like Shoreline, Woodinville, Kirkland, Redmond, Carnation, Duval, up to La Pass. They're designated 1 FTE, 40 hours of animal control services for that entire area. However, cities can opt to pay for additional animal control services. That middle area, 220, if you look at that, that includes Mercer Island, Bellevue, Issaquah, Newcastle, North Bend, and that whole I-90 corridor. That area is also designated for 40 hours or 1 animal control officer. And like I said, the other cities can purchase additional time. Then we go down to area 500, and here you go from Vashon to Burien, SeaTac, Kent, Tukwila, Covington, Maple Valley, Black Diamond, Enumclaw. That area is designated to have 2 animal control officers or 80 hours of animal control service. And earlier I talked about Kent. For $215,000, they have not paid for any additional animal control services. So for those 2 animal control officers, those 80 hours of animal control officer time, they share that with that entire region in the south end. And this comes from King County's annual report looking at response times. If you look at priority 1, which is, according to their definitions, when a human life is in danger, their response time goal is 1 hour, and their response time average is just over 1 hour. Priority 2, again, that's when an animal's life's in danger. Their goal of the response time is 2 hours, and they're being able to respond within an hour. Then if you look at priority 5, which is the lowest priority, their goal is the response time of 72 hours, and they've been able to achieve that with an average response time of 67 hours.
Chief, can I just ask you one question? Priority 1, so did you say that's if a human life is in danger?
According to their annual report, that's if a human life is in
Okay.
danger.
I presume if a human life's in danger, we'll also have other officers there. I mean, an hour seems like a long response time.
Well, this is King County. I'm not so sure how they.
Oh, this is King County?
Yeah, this isn't Renton. This is
Oh,
King
okay,
County.
okay.
This is if you're in that area 200, 220, or 500.
Oh,
If
okay.
you think of all King County minus Seattle, minus Des Moines, Federal Way, Renton, that there's basically 4 animal
So if
control
the
officers on
officer's
duty.
wrestling a bear on Mount Rainier or something, then they've got to come all the way back to,
It seems like a long time, even
Yeah.
for King County.
yeah, it does.
And so now if you look at the city of Renton, a small geographical area compared to area, 500, we have 2 animal control officers here. We have 7-day-a-week coverage. We have currently they work 12 hours a day, and then when they're not in service, we back that up with our patrol officers. Talk a little bit about Renton Animal Control. In 2015, the regional animal control of King County responded to almost 5,300 calls for service. That's system-wide. Here in the city, our 2 animal control officers responded to just over 3,300 calls for service.
3,300?
3,300.
Wow.
Which is more than half of what all of King County, with the exception of the contract cities and the cities that run their own program. Like I said, we provide 7-day-a-week coverage, and our animal control officers work with quite a few organizations in the fulfillment of their mission.
And again, if human life's in danger, it would be a coordinated response with other officers. and
Absolutely.
It could happen in minutes, right?
Yeah, typically, animal control responds, as does our department.
Yeah.
Here's some of the partner organizations. I won't read them all, but basically, it's different rescue groups, dog rescue groups, cat rescue groups, local pet shops, local veterinarian clinics. We work with the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, all in an effort to provide service to our citizens. Talk a little bit about Seattle Humane Society. I know this is a little bit of a contentious issue, and I think part of the issue is just a lot of the information, correct information wasn't out there. We went through our records and it showed that the city of Renton entered a relationship with the Humane Society in 1974, and our most recent contract was effective in 2011. I'll give you a little bit of information about this contract. It requires animal control to transport any impounded animal, like dogs, cats, rabbits, birds, or rodents, found within the city to the Humane Society, with the exception of seriously injured animals. And if a citizen surrenders an animal to an animal control officer, the city will be charged a surrender fee. If a resident surrenders an animal to the Humane Society, there will be no surrender fee. The Humane Society will take care of this animal for 72 hours, and if no owner comes forward, the animal is available for adoption who meets the Humane Society requirements, or the animal will be humanely destroyed. For each day an animal is housed at the Humane Society, the city is billed $35. So after 3 days, if the animal is not the owner isn't found, then the animal becomes the custody of the Humane Society. the same time, the Humane Society does sell a written animal license. And so they can, when they go to adopt or redeem an animal, if they live within the city, they'll sell them a dog license or a cat license, and then they'll take a small service charge and return the rest of the money to the city of Renton. At the same time, the department has a little bit of a history of some billing issues with the Humane Society. A few years ago, I pretty much had to call every month and beg for a bill because we went months and months without receiving a bill. And then more recently, we've had to constantly monitor the bills because they've been inaccurate. And so we've had to audit the bills and then send what we feel is the most accurate billing to the Humane Society, and we've never been questioned as we've audited those bills.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Prince?
so looking at the presentation, contract expired in 2011.
Correct.
Was there any effort made to renegotiate a contract in 2011?
I think the contract was effective in 11. Typically, they're year to year. And we really haven't attempted to renegotiate until just this past year.
We did try in 2011. I remember trying to work with them, and it was a difficult discussion. In the end, there was, at that time, they were 6 or 7 months late in billing us and all sorts of other things. In the end, we just decided to continue to operate on a month-to-month basis, and they were okay with that.
Was there any conversation about maybe going somewhere else? I understand that there were billing issues and going month to month, but I think a lot of the reason, was there any talk about coming to council and charting a different path? Because I think some part of the reason we're in the situation we're in now is because it seems very abrupt.
At the time, we told
and the council that's here now wasn't necessarily
Right.
in
We've
the
been
light on
using more than just the Humane Society since 2011, I think, and even before then, I believe. I don't know if we were exclusive in 2011. We've always had exotic animals and other animals that have gone to different locations. So I recall during the budget process, we mentioned to the council that we were working this issue and would continue to work it, but that there were other locations and we were working with. I know we've certainly internally, I believe we maybe to the Public Safety Committee, I think to the full council, to a discussion about working with various veterinarian clinics and other shelter services to try to see what we could do. But we can go back and document that.
I don't want to belabor this, but I can tell you that animal control came up in public safety and we were not told about this.
Fair enough.
We found out about this from social media, and it bubbling up to the council and then various emails that came out. My question was, I know we were working with other folks, but we were having all these issues with animal control and with the billing and whatnot, and they didn't do another contract. Was there ever any thought about contracting with someone else and just forgetting about the Seattle Humane Society?
Well, the Humane Society has always been kind of an overflow. We've tried other avenues from rescue groups. In fact, in 2015, we spent just about $23,000 to the Humane Society, and that's about where we are with this year as far as how much money we've spent with the Humane Society, because that's really not our first option. Years ago, once they heard that we built our small kennel up at the shops, at that time they wanted to cancel our agreement because they knew they weren't getting the dogs once they were impounded, because we would impound them at the shops. A lot of times we impound at the shops because we know once we give, under the current contract, once you get them to the Humane Society within 3 days, we really don't know what the end result will be. And so as a result of having our kennel at the shops, we've been able actually to extend the possession of the animals in the hope to get them adopted.
Mr. President, I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Ritchie?
During the time period between 2011 until now, were there any cost or price increases by Seattle Humane Society per dog? Did they stick to the same, 3-day, $35 a day pricing through that entire period, or were there increases?
I believe the only increase was in the proposed contract. I think Ms. Fontes can probably explain that a little bit. I think they went from $35 a day with a maximum of 3 days to, I believe, $300 per animal, I believe was the proposed agreement with the Humane Society. And we weren't necessarily opposed to that, but what caused the issue with the Humane Society was the public disclosure issue.
I think, Councilman Witchy, your question was in between 2011 and the current negotiations that
Yes.
terminated in
No.
July. No, there was no increase.
Okay, thank you.
And so there was an attempt to renegotiate the contract, but there was some issue with public disclosure, and then eventually Humane Society actually is the agency that canceled the contract, and that led us to where we are today. This contract was, obviously, they notified us in May, and then effective August 1, our contract with the Humane Society was canceled. So what's the impact to the public? Losing the services of the Humane Society, it's a loss. But from a public perspective, they will not see any changes. The Humane Society was just one of many services used by our animal control officers. If you go back to that slide with all the partner agencies, we've used other rescue groups to release the animals to, once we've held them for 72 hours. And so for services, all the public needs to know is to call 911 or a non-emergency line, and our animal control officers will respond and take care of their particular situation. So we're looking as far as what the impact is, how can we control the impact. Like I said, they were just our primary overflow kennel provider. And so what we're looking at is, in order to mitigate this loss, we are recommending an expansion of our current kennel. This additional kennel space will virtually eliminate the impacts of losing the Humane Society as a partner. And part of this, like you heard Deb Needham just talk about, is regarding emergency management, is that by expanding our kennel at the shops, we'll be able to implement the emergency management animal sheltering plan on a full-time basis. And granted, it's still not a very large shelter, but an opportunity for a localized flooding event, a localized emergency management event, we would have the ability to receive pets for short-term stay up at the shops. At the same time, we're looking at expanding our volunteer program so the daily care and feeding for these pets can be developed through a volunteer program.
Mr. Pavoni has a question.
Yes, Chief, I've got a question. Is there protocols in terms of when an animal is picked up, a dog or a cat, what's the decision that's made on where it's going to go? You know, whether it's going to be, you know, there's a number of different places you could send it. Do we always hold them for 3 days ourselves, or do other people hold them? I mean, is there a standardized protocol, or are they each different?
We mirror the Humane Society contract. The Humane Society contract states that for 72 hours, they will hold the animal. Then after 72 hours, it becomes the custody of the Humane Society. And so with our shops, the kennels up at the shops, we do the same thing. We hold them for 72 hours in anticipation of trying to find an owner. If that no owner comes forward, at that point, we look for a rescue group or something to turn the animal over. However, I do know on some instances, some dogs have been held longer. At the same time, if we're holding a dog under the dangerous dog ordinance, we potentially keep them at the shops for quite some time once you go through that process.
So every dog that we pick up goes to our kennels right now and is held for 72 hours in our possession right now?
Correct.
That's okay. That's what I was asking.
I have another question.
Oh,
And Mr. Prince had one, and then Ms. Witchy.
so have you all thought about what you're going to do if you get an animal and it's sick? What you're going to do if someone doesn't come forward in 72 hours? I mean, have you guys thought about what you're going to do in those instances where someone doesn't come up? And are you just going to turn it over to someone else?
Yeah, if the dogs are sick, we bring them to a local vet, and they take care of them.
And then what about, where's that cost going to come from?
It's
Is that
no
gonna come
different
out
as
of
right
the-
now. Under the Humane Society, we couldn't drop off a sick or injured animal. We were responsible for medical care for that sick or injured animal. And once it became healthy, then we would turn over to the Humane Society. So
And
that
what's-
won't change where it is right
And the
now.
budget for that comes out of the PD budget?
Correct. Comes out of the kenneling budget, the $124,000 kenneling budget.
Good question. Ms. Witchy?
Yes, I just wanted to confirm that you have the capacity to screen the chips on the animals, to read the chips when you first encounter them?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Is that on the actual vans themselves that go out?
It's in the animal control truck.
Okay, good, thank you.
Then, was there another question over here?
Not yet?
Okay.
You have a question?
Okay, good.
So here's kind of a picture of the new kennel. It's up at the shops. Like I said, this kennel allows more opportunity to find a home for found animals, because with a larger kennel, we'll be able to hold the animals longer than 3 days. At the same time, I think it's an increased service to our citizens, because if we're in a position to reunite this pet with their owner, they don't have to go to Bellevue like it currently is under the Humane Society, that we can meet with them up at the shops or actually transport the pet to their home to reunite the pet with their owner. Like I said, we're going to develop a volunteer program to assist with this proposed kennel, to assist with the care and feeding. And I know there's been some questions about the facility, and it will be heated, and there will be some large ventilation for the summer months up at the new kennel. And here's a little bit closer view. The kennel is basically 40 by 80. It'll be pushed just a little bit north of where it currently is. And so far as the fiscal impacts of our proposed kennel, the cost of this kennel will be between $150,000 and $300,000. Currently, we're looking at, these are all kind of what we're kind of ballpark figures, as we're just trying to develop a plan, but all this eventually will come forward to you once we vet it in the form of an issue paper and agenda bill. So this is kind of our planning stage. Yeah, we're looking at $100,000 we transferred from the police budget to facilities budget. And this will come from the savings in our current kenneling line item. And eventually we'll be asking for additional $100,000 in 2017. And then our 2017 budget, the potential of another $100,000, which will come out of our kenneling line item. And then down the road, we can get to the point where our annual kenneling line item can be reduced from $125,000 to just $25,000 annually.
Mr. President?
Yes, Mr. Prince?
So a couple of things. One, you all will develop a process to screen those volunteers, obviously. And two, when would you, if we gave you approval to build this kennel, when would you expect it to be operational?
Actually, Commander Karlovich is the one working with facilities on that, so I'm not exactly sure of the timeline. It's probably, I would think sometime after the first of the year, once you go through all the process and identify the funds.
17 or 18?
I'm sorry, 17.
And,
I'd guess more mid-17, just how it is. We got to design the thing and then get approval for landscaping and all the other sorts of things. We have to move some other locations there. So I would think we'll work, make every effort, but most likely it'll be mid-2017 before it's done.
and Chief, I have a question. One of the issues I've been wondering about is, it sounds like we weren't able to come to agreement with Seattle Humane Society regarding the 3-day impound, the old contract that we had where they covered that for the 35 a day or whatever. And I understand records and things like that are part of that issue. But what about if we did change our paradigm somewhat and we did the holding here? Could we reach a new contract with them, or at least an agreement regarding after the animals?
I think the issue is public disclosure. I have to ask city attorney to weigh in on that issue.
Well, specifically though, where I was going is after the waiting period, when if whether it's 3 days or we extend it to 5 days or whatever, if we've determined that an animal's not going to be reunited with its owner, then I presume if the Humane Society was willing to take the animal, or any rescue agency or whatever, that we'd want to work with them, isn't that
Right.
correct?
I mean, we're still going to try to adopt the animal out with rescue.
Yeah.
But any dealings with the Humane Society would need a contract. We'd have to figure out how we're going to get past the public disclosure issue.
Okay. And does public disclosure remain an issue even after that waiting period's up, or?
The public disclosure issue is always going to be a possible issue.
Okay.
So I don't think that the timing is going to affect that.
I see.
really.
Okay. Okay.
And that ends my presentation. If you have any other questions.
Process question. So you say you're gonna do an agenda bill. When do you expect this to come back before the council?
Well, I'll be, stick around and listen to the public comment, and then we'll probably eventually bring it back to public safety and try to craft an agenda bill that meets your expectations.
When? Are you thinking September, October?
With the
Next
council
January?
schedule, it'd probably be tried by September.
Okay.
Mr. President? Oh, yeah, Mr. McGurven?
Yes, so in terms of recovering a lost pet, I can see the advantage certainly of having it here and not in Bellevue's. I mean, as long as it was well advertised, people knew there was where they were supposed to go, obviously, to find that pet. In regards to the adoption services, I know you mentioned we still contract with a lot of other providers. Would the city provide that adoption process as well if someone were to come to the kennel to adopt, or would it all strictly be done through or the other organizations?
Probably don't know the reason why we couldn't. We have to figure out the logistics. I'm not exactly sure the logistics in that.
Just want to make sure, obviously, that people know they can, that pet does find a new home. I would hate to see them go to the kennel and not be able to find a home, and then, after that 72 hours has passed, and
Right. I mean, there are probably dozens of city employees that have dogs and cats that came through our animal control, so we would look at that.
We can certainly make that part of the analysis that we'll bring back to the Public Safety Committee. I think it's probably a function of the volunteer effort that we get there. This would be, more animals is going to create more work, and adoption services is not something that we're currently in the business of, at least formally, so officially. So I think it's going to be a combination of what sort of program we'd put together with volunteers, and then we'd come back and talk to you about that.
Yeah, I have a quick question, and I know a couple other councilmen. So we talked about its role for people surrendering animals, and there's a lot of members of our community that donate money and time to the Seattle Humane Society. And would this change the nature of if somebody in Renton had a animal that they just decided they couldn't keep anymore and they wanted to bring it to the Humane Society? Would this preclude that, or?
I don't believe so.
Chief, can you clarify why? I mean, is it the contract that allows people in Renton to surrender an animal to the Humane Society, or is it just their mission?
The current contract, a citizen can surrender their animal to animal control, and we can drop off the animal at the Humane Society, and we get charged a surrender fee. But we've never been charged a surrender fee where a citizen will drop it off with animal control.
Okay. I haven't done it, but I don't know if the Humane Society would check somebody's ID if they came in and said that they have a cat they can't keep and they want to drop it off. Would they say, well, you're in the city of Renton and we can't do it?
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay. Okay. If all right. Other questions?
So, I do have one question. So how do we determine if we hold the animal for 72 hours or even 4 or 5 days, there's a list of different partner organizations. How do we determine where that animal is going to go? I mean,
To tell the truth, I don't know. I don't know how we determine that. I don't know if it's a rotating basis. I don't know if it's some rescue groups specialize in certain breeds. To tell the truth, I don't know, but I can find out.
And Ms.
Yes,
Ritchie?
what are your plans to better communicate to the public when you have an animal? Because I've seen the Facebook postings. I'm lucky, I got to see the dog that was missing. But most people don't use Facebook not everybody uses Facebook. Are you gonna have a website? Is there gonna be a way where people can check to see if their animal is in our care? Can we post photos? Is there gonna be better communication and outreach when you're trying to find the owner?
That's part of the plan, is develop some sort of a process of either posting photos or descriptions in a timely manner in those kind of incidences where pets are lost or recovered.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions at this time?
not at this time. I'm sure more.
Okay, so I've communicated prior to this meeting, traded emails with somebody in the public that was asking about public comment, and the council meeting is going to provide a great opportunity for anybody that wants to speak on this. I can tell, I'll tell you, it was obvious to me that some of the people in the audience disagree with some of the answers that have been put forward, and I respect that, and I'm very interested in your opinion about that, or your facts that you might bring. One of the things I will ask is when we get to audience comment, try and think about how do you keep your comments to 5 minutes. We have a 5-minute limit. And also just be aware that you can supplement your spoken comments with an email to the council, and you know, that'll be really useful too. So I think if you feel like tonight you know, somebody said something that's just not the way it is, please don't hesitate to go out and find it on the web page, or find the bylaws or whatever, and forward those to us so that we have those available. That is to say, you don't have to remember everything tonight. There will be a little time. I think with that, council, should we move to the next topic?
Might as well.
Okay, thanks. Very good presentation. Appreciate it. Okay, so next we have a downtown revitalization economic development update. Always a great topic. Oh, and while you're setting up, I should also say there should be a sign-up sheet, if it's not there yet, for the council meeting audience comment. So please sign up if you're going to speak. Okay, thanks.
Good evening, Council President and Council members. John Collum, Community Development Project Manager with the City of Renton. I'm here tonight to provide an update of the progress being made on several downtown revitalization projects. First, I want to start with the Downtown Renton Partnership to give you an update on what's happening with that organization. It's been in existence for probably a little over a year and a half. And most recently, it's turned to doing specific events that it believes it can help to make downtown a better environment, and also to engage businesses and other volunteers in what's happening in downtown. One of those things are a series of downtown cleanups that started back in April. The second one occurred last month on July 30th. And it's part of its efforts they've organized the downtown cleaning crew, where they've actually going out and doing specific cleanups in the downtown business district, usually focusing on 1 or 2 streets on maybe 3 or 4 blocks total for that specific Saturday. Last month, they joined together with some stormtroopers from a local organization to add some kind of a branding element to what we're trying to do. In advance of an event that's happening in the fall near downtown Renton at the Red Lion, the RenCon event, the Renton Comic Con. That turned out to be a successful event. I think it brought out more people to be involved in the cleanup, as well as a little bit more fun and involvement amongst the business owners that day. There will be at least 2 more of these before the RenCon. The next one is scheduled for August 27th at 10 a.m. If you'd like to join us, come by the Renton Chamber of Commerce. You don't have to dress in costume, but there probably will be some stormtroopers there to make sure that you're actually there to help us clean up downtown. The second big project that the partnership's working on right now is a Small Business Saturday event to happen the Thursday after Thanksgiving. That's November 26th. This is an event, it'll be a new event for downtown that will involve getting customers into the businesses and the restaurants and other service-related industries in downtown on that Saturday in recognition of small businesses. It also, the organization is working in conjunction with Piazza Renton to actually combine this with the holiday tree lighting and Santa arrival event at Piazza Park that evening. There's more work to be done on that. In fact, I'll be going to a promotions committee meeting right after this to help with the planning on that event, but I'll have more to share with you probably at our next update in 6 to 9 weeks. And then finally, the partnership has rotated some of its officers within the membership of the organization. And that new set of officers went into effect at last month's meeting. The new president is Dalen Harrison, who's a vice president with First Financial Bank. The vice president is Van Andrews, who's representing the Renton Municipal Arts Commission on the partnership board. Gene Sins, the owner of Blossom and Red House Restaurants, is the secretary. I'm serving as the treasurer. And then John Glenn, an at-large community member for the board, is also an at-large officer on the organization's board, executive board as well. So that new set of officers has been put in place and is working on some new endeavors for the partnership to take on in the next 6 to 12 months. Next item I'd like to update you on is the 200 Mill Avenue project. We first brought the concept for exploring redevelopment options for this city-owned property to the Committee of the Whole in February this year, along with more information that we provided you at your retreat in February. We shared a draft of a request for interest with the committee in late March, and then we released a request for interest on April 20th. We reported at the last update we gave you on June 27th that we had 3 interested parties that submitted an expression of interest for the property, and those are listed on the slide here. We reviewed those submittals with you, as I said, on June 27th, and then you authorized staff to issue a request for proposals for redevelopment of the site to the 3 parties. Prior to issuing the RFP, the project team has obtained a broker's opinion of value of the property. The opinion of value was deemed necessary to utilize so that staff can analyze the RFP responses, as we're asking the developers to include a proposed purchase price for the land and existing improvements for the site. The approximate as-is value, including the existing building and buildable land area, was determined to be about $7 million, rounded. I want to make sure that you're aware of this, as that's out on the streets with those with the developers that we submitted the proposal to. It's not intended to raise expectations as to what the offer prices might be from the developers. It's being used as a base for us to review the proposals when they come in. The price that might be offered will probably be dependent upon the actual projects that are proposed, as well as any public amenities that might actually be offered as part of the projects. Prior to disposition, the city will obtain an independent appraisal to determine the fair market value of the property, and that's per city council policy and procedure, to support the ultimate price that the city might agree to sell the property. So on July 28th, we released the request for proposals to the 3 interested parties. On August 8th, unfortunately, the Omar Lee team declined to participate. They notified us. They cited that the team was seeking exclusive control of the property for a period of time prior to devoting necessary resources to design the right project for their team, as well as meet the city and neighborhood needs. So we have 2 of the developers left. Both have indicated to me, either via email or via phone, that they are definitely planning to move forward with the request for proposals process. The next important benchmark in that process is this Thursday, August 18th, when those 2 parties must submit an initial concept package that will go through a 2-week pre-application review process. This is a process that we put all developers through that want to put together large projects like this. It's a free process. They don't have to pay for it. It'll take about 2 weeks for it to be completed. So by the 1st of September, they will have responses from several city departments on development regulations related to their concepts. And then their final proposals are due on September 30th to staff. I think probably by the time they come in, we will be doing another update for the Committee of the Whole. So I'll have more about the process of review past September 30th at our next update. The next item I'd like to update you on is the Downtown Civic Core Vision and Action Plan request for proposals. We first discussed the Civic Core area with council back at its February retreat, and also at the March 28th Committee of the Whole meeting. We brought forth a draft request for proposal seeking a consultant to develop a visionary master plan for the Civic Core and surrounding area at that meeting. This was in light of the city's plans to relocate many of the transit center's operations to a new station at Grady and Rainier. And as we noted in a June 27th downtown update to this committee, we received 12 responses from both locally and nationally based consultant teams. Well, since that update, the 12 responses have been reviewed in July by a selection committee comprised of representatives of the Planning Commission, Parks Commission, the City Center Plan Advisory Board, the Renton Downtown Partnership, and city staff members. The selection committee shortlisted 4 responses and then interviewed those teams also in July. Those teams are BDS Planning and Urban Design out of Seattle, Design Workshop out of Austin, Texas, MIG, which is out of both the Portland and Seattle offices that they service, and OTAC, which is out of Seattle. Following the interviews, the committee determined that the top-ranked team is the one led by MIG, with Fear and Peers and Leland Consulting Group as sub-consultants. I wanted to share with you tonight as kind of a preview of this, some of the strengths that the committee noted for this particular team. They had a passion for the project amongst their team members at the team interview. They have strong civil and transportation engineers, which are key components of this project. They understand the need and opportunity to brand downtown as part of the overall solution and through the project itself. They recognize the importance of wayfinding in making the Civic Core and the downtown more successful. The team's overall approach was superior and more detailed than the other teams we looked at. They provided stronger project examples from other communities that helped us understand that they really knew the type of plan that we were looking for here. The team actually provides superior graphics in what they provide, which we think is good to help the public understand what this plan can do and what it's all about. And I'll also note that MIG was the lead consultant on the city's Parks, Recreation, and Natural Areas Plan that was adopted in 2011. And I think generally that's considered to be a successful project and one in which this consultant worked very well with city staff. So staff is currently reviewing a detailed project scope from MIG and expects to receive a fee proposal later this week. Staff and MIG are expected to need several weeks to negotiate a final scope and fee. 3 city departments, CED, Community Services, and Public Works are working together on negotiating the scope and fee. Staff's goal is to bring forward the negotiated final scope and fee within a consultant contract for the Committee of the Whole briefing on September 12th, which I believe is your next meeting, and then request the council authorize the mayor to execute a contract at the full council meeting that same evening. So I point that out just to make sure that you understand and that you're in agreement that staff will be bringing an item forward for Committee of the Whole that evening and then potentially taking it on to the full council later that evening. That is if staff is successful in getting the negotiations done within the next several weeks. If we're unsuccessful in getting it ready by September 12th, then our goal would be to bring it forward as soon as possible thereafter. We hope that the project work for this will begin by the middle of September or maybe late September. Next project I want to update you on is the historic Crotona building rehabilitation. We're in the final weeks of that project's rehab. I hope you've had a chance to make it to downtown over the last couple of months to see it as it's slowly been painted and totally starting to look like a very different building than it did before, just based upon the paint color. This is the first recipient of funding from the city's facade improvement loan program, as you may know. The exterior painting is expected to be completed this week. Tenant improvements in the interior space being readied for the Urban Sprouts retail use are underway in hopes that that store will be open probably by early September. And if you haven't noticed, there's a mural that's shown in the lower left-hand corner of the slide that has actually been painted on the building's west-facing side, which is along the alley, but it's also visible from South 3rd Street. The title of that mural is Transformation. It was designed and painted by graphic artist Marcia Rollinger, who's also the current chair of the Renton Municipal Arts Commission. The mural was a late addition to the project's overall design, but it's encouraged staff to look for opportunities to incorporate murals into blank walls for all the city's facade improvement projects. The next item is a downtown event to celebrate the completion of the Cortona building rehab, as well as the opening of some new businesses in downtown. We're going to celebrate on September 16th the completion of the Cortona rehab, along with the openings of Urban Sprouts there and the new Four Generals Brewing on Wells Avenue. The Economic Development Division has brought together about 20 downtown organizations and businesses to plan and host the event. The event focus is threefold. We want to celebrate new businesses that have opened in downtown in 2016. There are several that have, and several more that are still to open before the end of the year. We want to recognize downtown as Renton's Center for the Arts, and we want to participate in the annual Parking Day, which is always celebrated on the third Friday in September each year. Parking Day is an annual global event where citizens, artists, and activists collaborate to temporarily transform parking spaces into mini parks or temporary public spaces to call attention to the need for more urban open space. So along South 3rd and Wells in downtown, we'll have 3 pop-up parklets that will open from noon to 8 p.m. that day. So please drop by and visit those. There's several organizations involved in planning, designing, and actually building them, so it should be fun to see them transformed probably between 9 and noon that morning and be activated from noon to 8 and then disassembled within an hour after that. From 4 to 8 p.m. that evening on September 16th, we'll have a food truck and baked goods from the Brewmaster's Bakery, which is also a new Renton business up on Benson Road. That will be set up near Four Generals on Wells. We'll go south and turn on westward on South 3rd Street for another pop-up parklet in front of the Comic Hut business. And then down by the Cortona building, we'll have lots of activities happening throughout that building, including a pop-up shop featuring local artists and vendors, live music, community art happenings, and an ice cream cart in the parklet there. We're also going to have other designated new businesses that we want people to drop by that afternoon. Most of them will be hosting art exhibits themselves. So there's going to be a lot to do. We kind of see this as the end of summer celebration for downtown. There are a lot of events that are going to be happening later in September as well as throughout the fall and early winter time in downtown. So it's kind of a kickoff to a big season of events in downtown. So there's a Facebook page for this, and we invite you to take a look at that and plan to join us on that date. And then finally, I want to preview what we hope is going to be the next project that will be funded by the city's Facade Improvement Loan Program. The former H&H Plaza was sold to a new owner this past February. The property is located between 2nd and 3rd Streets at 332 Burnett Avenue. That's just south of the Bank of America parking lot. The new owner plans to renovate the entire building inside and out. Currently, 67% of the building is vacant. 2 current tenants, a nail salon and a hair salon, are remaining, but the owner is actually going to turn the rest of the building into a new location for his Vigor Ground Fitness and Performance business, which is currently a small fitness and training facility located on Bronson Way, just north of downtown. This is going to greatly expand that business into a new modern space. The owner is planning to take this outdated, cluttered, and unattractive 10,000 square foot building and install a new storefront window system with fully glazed overhead doors along Burnett, while removing wood-infilled openings along the east side of the building into glazed overhead doors and a storefront entrance to create an attractive real secondary entrance off the alley. Electrical meters, conduits, and piping currently cluttering the west, south, and north sides will be located in the rear of the building and interior portions. And the existing large canopy overhanging Burnett Avenue will be repaired and cladded with upgraded fir veneer with LED recessed linear lighting. The project plans all new building signage that is appropriately placed on the building's west and east facades so that it doesn't clutter the building's street-facing windows as the current signage does. And then finally, a mural is planned for the building's blank southern wall facing Hauser and Tompkin Park. The project's architect is currently managing an artist competition for the mural in conjunction with the Municipal Arts Commission. On the inside, the owner plans to open up the interior space to allow more natural light to fill the entire building, and future phases of improvements would add a smoothie and coffee bar located just inside one of the overhead doors along Burnett. In addition to the fitness center lobby, workout areas, and locker rooms associated with the fitness center, interior plans include space for associated fitness facilities for a masseuse, chiropractor, and physical therapist. The facade program funding can only cover improvements to the building's exterior. The exterior improvements are estimated to cost approximately $314,000, and so the owner is requesting approximately $157,000 in program funding, or about 50% of the exterior project cost. The owner will match that amount by covering the balance of the exterior budget and all of the costs of the interior improvements. The project envisions taking an underutilized and unattractive building in the Civic Core and creating a modernized, aesthetically pleasing mixed-use environment. The project has successfully completed the King County Environmental Review required by CDBG funding. In accordance with the Facade Improvement Program's guidelines, the owner's funding request will be reviewed by the city's Facade Program Loan Committee next week. If approved for funding by the committee, the city and owner will complete negotiations for a facade improvement agreement. The city staff hopes to fully brief the committee of the whole on this agreement on September 12th, most likely, and then request that council authorize the mayor to execute the agreement later that month. So to wrap up, I want to show you a video that the architect has put together for this. I'm going to go over there to turn this on. So I hope that you'll enjoy this, and feel free to dance to it if you want to. It's got some catchy music. If you'll indulge me, I'm going to show a nighttime version of that as well. It's the same length.
Nice seeing that kind of investment, people spending that kind of energy and resources to update downtown.
So that completes the presentation. We several other projects we're working on. Don't have quite enough time to go into those tonight, but we wanted to share those highlights with you, and happy to take any questions you might have.
Comments, questions?
Mr. President, I've got just one. Staff, we currently don't have this scheduled for the September 12th Committee of the Whole. We have time on the 19th. If you're sure that we are ready on the 12th, the council will have to announce that tonight, and we'll have to probably extend our committee the whole meeting and adjust some other schedules. So how sure are you we'll have it? Otherwise, we can go ahead and we can submit the agenda bill and on the 12th, and then council could review that prior to adoption on the 19th.
I think it's probably a safer bet that we'll be ready to go for both committee of the whole and council for the 19th.
Okay.
Just plan that.
We're still just starting to negotiate right now.
Okay, good. Hey, we have just a few minutes for regional issues. Let's go ahead and take some of the most pressing ones. If anybody has anything they want to bring up. Jay, at this point, do you have any specific? Is this for council or?
This is really just for you all. You're on various regional committees, and so we try to schedule some time for you all to have a chance to update each other and receive any direction from the council that you might need to represent our interests on the regional committee.
Is there any items anybody would like to bring up for discussion?
Greg already mentioned mine, the Metro Long Range Plan, so I'm good.
Very good. Thank you.
I have nothing to report.
Okay, anything from you at this point? Okay. Hey, perfect timing. I don't know how we pulled that off, but so it's nice to get a short recess between now and the council meeting. So we will reconvene at 7. I'd again remind anybody that wants to speak to please sign up over by the door. And with that, Committee of the Whole is adjourned.